Hey there everyone, welcome back to another behind the scenes video for Ark Survival Evolved. We're on the road to Ascension and we're playing on the Fjorder server right now. Doing live streams almost nightly, about 5 to 6 nights a week depending on other obligations. And I wanted to go over today some, if you've been watching it all, you've noticed that we've been focusing on certain animals to tame. I want to show you which animals we've been focusing on and explain why we've been focusing on these animals. So, let's cue up the music and we'll get right to it. Alright, first on the list is the Triceratops. Everybody recognizes this dinosaur. We've all seen it when we were little kids in books. We saw it in Jurassic Park. We've seen it all over the place. One of the most famous dinosaurs of all times. This is a fairly easy dinosaur to tame early in the game. It is a knockout tame, and you have to knock it out and feed it berries or vegetables or kibble, whatever, to get it tamed up. I highly recommend getting one early, and I'll tell you why. One, it can give you quite a bit of protection, right? If you're on the back of one of these and a group of raptors comes up to you, this guy can keep bouncing those raptors off with his horns, keeping them at bay, and eventually killing them. That'll give you a chance to farm them up for a little bit of meat and hide. Also, when you're traveling on him, he can knock down trees and the little bushes you see everywhere. This will get you wood, lots of thatch, and a decent amount of berries. And we all know berries are very important early game for eating, and also to acquire narco berries, which are a big component of narcotics. And that's something that you really need to get a lot of to make knockout arrows, knockout darts, etc., etc., as well as regular old narcotics. So this one's first on my list. Alright, next on the list is the Doedicurus. Kind of looks like an ancient armadillo with a big spiky ball on his tail. Let's get around and look at that. This is a great creature to have as well. Now, the reason I like to get one of these, and he's spazzing out a little bit because he's standing on the ceiling, I'm sorry about that, but these guys are able to acquire tons and tons of stone for you. Riding on the back of one of these and swinging the tail will break stone. It will also get thatch and wood, but it's not very efficient at that. But also with the stone, it gets a big weight reduction when it's holding the stone, so 1,000 pounds of stone in your inventory will weigh significantly less than his. I believe it's around about 50% or so. And he also has a cool little rolling movement, so he can get around fairly quickly. The trike is slow. He does have a charge that can charge up and get him to run a brief period of time. But this guy, you can get him rolling, and he'll roll until he runs out of stamina, which is a great way to escape danger and just move on to the next set of rocks. Also, that swinging tail, he can hold his own against smaller predators, so not too bad. This is another knockout tame. You got to shoot him with darts or arrows or whatever, and get him to go unconscious, feed him berries. He's another herbivore. Berries, vegetables, or kibble, later in the game. And, fairly easy creature to tame. You don't even need a trap for him. You can just run around backwards and shoot arrows or darts in his face until he finally passes out. Alright, let's check out the next one. Alright, this spiky beast is the Ankylosaurus, and you can see he's very similar to the Doedicurus in many ways, but he's less armadillo looking and more armored tank looking. He does have a tail similar to the Doedicurus, but his has these big spines on it as opposed to the smaller ones, and his entire back is armored, giving him a nice defense. Another easy tame. They're not very fast, so you can just shoot arrows in their face or darts until they're knocked out, feed them vegetables, berries, or kibble later in the game. But what this guy excels in is two things. One, he gets tons of metal. So when you swing that tail and you hit regular rocks, you have a chance of gaining a little bit of metal from them. But if you find a metal node, boy, he cleans up on that. He'll get much more metal than you will with a pick, or than any other creature will, really. Great early game tame if you could find one of these. Higher level, of course, the better, just like all the rest of them. He also gets flint from regular stone, a lot more flint than he does rock. So the combination of him and a Doedicurus, you can end up making tons and tons of spark powder. And that's always important. That's a good way to level up. And it's also the gateway to making gunpowder and bullets later on for your firearms when you finally get those unlocked. So if you see one of these around, try to take it down. Excellent, excellent tame. And that tail, again, like the Doedicurus, will protect him against smaller predators. Now, he doesn't have that escape plan that he rolls up like the Doedicurus, and he's fairly slow. I mean, he's got a little bit of a run to him. He does okay in water, but he's not great. So you kind of want to keep careful with this guy. You don't want him facing off against a Rex or, you know, a large pack of carnivores like raptors or Dionychus or anything like that. You kind of want to keep him safe. But that tail, like I said, it will send guys flying. If you might be able to knock guys off a cliff if possible, smaller predators, or just outright kill them with it. Alright, let's check out the next guy. Alright, this is the Castorroidus. This is a beaver, basically, an ancient beaver. Look at his buck teeth there. Excellent tame to gather wood. He will get far more wood than most other creatures when chewing down those trees. Where a Triceratops will get thatch, he'll get tons of wood. He can also gather berries, much like the trike can, which is another good feature for him. He's a lot quicker than the trike, so, you know, great animal to have there. And he's another knockout tame. So, you know, you're going to have to knock him down and feed him and wake him up and get him tamed up. But truly a very important animal. And here's another great reason why to get one of these. We're going to go look inside of his inventory. When he has a saddle, he basically turns into a smithy. And anything you can build in the smithy, you can build in his inventory, which is fantastic. So if you're looking to start a new base somewhere and you want to, you know, bring a smithy along, but you can't make it or whatever, just bring one of these guys with you. You have a mobile smithy, and if you bring the next guy with you, you'll have a mobile mortar pestle too. So let's get to that one. Alright, so this is the Noble Equus, an ancient version of the horse. Kind of looks like a zebra too. You can see the stripes on it. This one, the coloration is fairly close, but on other ones you'll see a major difference between the stripes, and you'll see the stripes are really prominent. This is a fantastic early tame. You have to be level 10 to get one. And the way you tame one of these guys is in your hotbar, you put either berries or vegetables, if you can find or grow vegetables, in the last slot on the right-hand side. You'll come up behind him, and on the PlayStation you hit triangle to initiate a mini game, and then you hit it again to ride him, and then almost immediately afterward you'll need to hit it again. You'll see a little lasso picture down in the lower right hand corner of the screen, and every time that light lights up and the horse whinnies, you will have to push the triangle to keep taming him. You'll be feeding him a vegetable, a berry, or whatever it is every single time. This can be challenging depending on what's around you. If you're in a fairly safe area, it's not a big deal. If you're in a very dangerous area, well, it can be tough because he can run into a group of enemies. You have no control over where he's running or what he's doing while you're taming him. But these guys are great. They're fast. You know, you can get around quite a bit. They have great stamina. Their kick will induce torpor on an enemy. So you do have two attacks. You have a headbutt, kind of sweeping of the head, and then you have the kick. The kick induces torpor, and you can use it to knock out creatures, you know, fairly well. I've knocked out Brontosaurus with these guys when I bumped them up. Problem is, it also inflicts a lot of damage, so you're not going to want to use that on, you know, smaller animals or guys that don't have a lot of health. You have to be careful with the horse because he'll just outright kill him instead of knocking him out. I tamed a thorny dragon with one once, and I had him down to 5.5 life. I wasn't even paying attention. I was like, wow, almost killed the damn thing. So, definitely a great tame. And here's another reason it's great. You don't need a saddle to ride it, but if you do have a saddle, he becomes a mobile mortar and pestle, able to make narcotics, you know, clay, salt, spark powder, spinning paste, all of it. And you're not limited to the small amount of inventory that you are on the mortar and pestle itself. This guy's a much, you know, it's based on his weight basically, so you can just pump him full of thousands of berries and hundreds of spoiled meat and stacks of this and stacks of that, and just get him going and making tons and tons of stuff, which is another great way to level. And the great thing is, while he's doing that, you can be riding him, so you can run around. He will gather berries, and I believe if he hits a tree, he'll gather thatch and a little bit of wood. I don't remember exactly, but he is pretty good at getting berries, so if you got some spoiled meat on you, you can throw it in his inventory, run around, gather up some narco berries, kick off the process of making narcotics and keep running, and you'll both benefit from it with a little bit of XP. One of my favorite mounts in the game. I do like using these guys to get around quite a bit. If you've watched me at all, you'll know that. Alright, this is the Carbonemus. This is a turtle that you're going to see all over the place in Ark. I've seen them in every biome pretty much. They're pretty cool. They're not that tough to knock out. Again, it's another knockout tame. So you just knock it down, give it berries and whatnot. But what I like about this guy, and the reason I like to get one of these, and I like to get one early, the highest level possible, and level the hell out of its health, because it becomes a real tank. It's a great mount. You can shoot from its back, much like you can on some of the other creatures that we talked about today. In fact, I think pretty much all of them so far we can shoot from their back. But he's great to take into the water with a crossbow and some narcotic arrows, so you can start taming your first water mounts. He has no oxygen stat on him, so you don't have to worry about him drowning. He can stay underwater indefinitely. With his high health, and if you keep leveling his health, he's a beast. I use him to tame the giant squid, the Tusateuthis. I use him to get my first megalodons. I'll sit on his back when I'm running around trying to tame a basilosaur. You know, very, very useful creature. Slow as hell. So you don't want to use him as a primary mount in the water if possible. If I'm looking for squid, what I'll usually do is pod him up and take something much faster down to where the squid are, like a basil or a megalodon or something like that. Then I'll toss him out, hop on him, and go do my business with the squid. So, yeah, fantastic animal to have. Other than that, you know, nothing special. But, like I said, very tanky. Very tanky. Even on land, he works pretty good. If you want to go do some taming against something that you're a little leery about, you don't want it hurting you, you can get on his back, use your rifle, use your bow, whatever, and get it knocked out. And he'll take a beating, but he'll live to fight another day, especially if you pump all that health up. Alright, let's check out the next guy. Alright, next up is the Dimetrodon, a precursor to the dinosaurs. These creatures lived long before the dinosaurs did, and they're very important in the game. I always look for a breedable pair of these as early as possible, because these guys will assist you in breeding other dinosaurs. And if you have a breeding pair, that's great, because you can make more of them, and the more you have, the better you can... well, I'll explain that in a second, but anyway, these guys are commonly found in swamps and areas like that. They don't move around a lot. They are underwater. A lot of times you're not going to see them. You'll maybe see the fins sticking up, so they can be hard to spot. But when I do spot them, I try to get them and tame them up. It's another knockout tame. This guy is a carnivore, so he's going to require meat. If you have mutton, that's really good to use. If you have prime meat, that's fantastic. Regular meat is okay, you know, but the better quality meat, the easier this tame will be. Now, he doesn't have a lot of torpor, and what torpor he has drops rapidly. So if you're planning on taming one of these, make sure you have a whole bunch of narco berries on you or some narcotics so you can keep him asleep long enough to get him tamed. Otherwise, he's going to wake up midway through it, and you're going to have to start the whole process over again. And that can be very, very frustrating. But I highly recommend this guy. And the reason I get this guy, and I said he makes raising other creatures easier, is they have an aura around them that will help incubate eggs. So if you have a couple of these and you drop an egg next to them, if the area is normally too cold or too hot for the egg, these guys create an aura around them that can help incubate that egg. It will take away that, you know, it'll adjust the hypothermic and hyperthermic region around the egg and allow it to incubate. The higher their melee, the more incubation they provide. So that's pretty much the only thing I raise on these guys is melee. because, yeah, that means you'll need less of them to incubate, harder to incubate eggs. Boy, have I said incubate enough this time around? Like wyvern eggs and the like. They can be very, very difficult. So if you find these, get them. The higher the level, the better. And the higher the melee, the better. Alright, let's move on. Alright, meet the Argentavis, one of the greatest overall animals in the game, one of the most useful, and a must-have for anyone who's playing Ark. This bird can do a lot of things. This bird offers weight reduction in its inventory, much like the Doedicurus does with stone, and the Ankylosaurus does with metal, and the beaver, the Castroides, he does it with wood. This guy does it with several different items. Sometimes not as efficiently, like a Anky will lower the weight of metal by 75%. This guy only does it by 50, but he'll lower obsidian, crystal, many other resources that can be quite heavy. So breeding up a few of these and leveling up their weight, which is an easy thing to do, will create a pack of, mules, basically. You can go to a region, you can bring an Anky with you, farm up as much metal as you can carry, fill these RGs up with it, and then fly home and load up all of your forges and burn all that metal down and smelt it into ingots, which is priceless. Yeah, one of the greatest creatures in the game. Now, he can also pick up a lot of creatures, not all of them. He can pick up a Doedicurus and a Ankylosaurus, he can pick up a horse, galleys, smaller creatures, he can get a lot of these guys. And that makes him instrumental in taming because, picking up an Anky and dropping it into a trap, like that one right down there, is a great way to tame one because now it can't get away from you. You just drop it in there and then you can just stand there and shoot darts at it or arrows until it's fully tamed. That even worked. I tested it with a horse. I dropped a horse in there and I did that whole horse minigame in there in a perfectly safe area. You just got to wait for the horse to stop panicking before you start working on it. So, yeah, that's huge. These guys can fight. You can level their melee up. You can level their health up. You can level their stamina up. They have pretty decent stamina overall. They're pretty good fighters. They can tear down. They can take down other RGs if you got a little bit of skill and a little bit of little points in your health and melee. You should have no problem taking down, a small flock of 2 or 3 RGs. Absolutely no issue. Now, another great thing about this is he shares something in common with the beaver we talked about earlier, and that is the saddle that turns into a smithy. So, again, anything you can make in a smithy, you can make in this guy's ammo, or in this guy's, I'm looking at ammo there, in that guy's inventory. Now, one thing you can't do, and I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, and you can't do this with the beaver either, is repair items. Man, look at him. You can't repair items inside their inventory for some reason, but anything else you can do. Aw, he's giving me a kissy poo. Alright, so let's move on. Alright, the last animal I'm going to have on the list today is the Ovis. Now, this one's a little trickier to tame because you need to make something called a sweet vegetable cake, and that requires a lot of resources that you may or may not have available to you early in the game. But when you do have them available, you got to get a mating pair of these guys and start making a ton of these guys because they're awesome. Now, you can ride them with no saddle, but that's nothing. You don't want to really ride these guys. It's not what they're meant for. You can cut their wool off of them and get fur to make fur armor and stuff like that. But the best feature about these guys is this right here. You have the ability to slaughter them, right? And when you slaughter them and you harvest them up, use a good pick or axe or a good creature that can, maximize your yields. But when you slaughter one of these guys, you're going to get a ton of mutton, you're going to get hide, and you're going to get the pelt for making fur armor. So that's fantastic. If you can't get these guys early on, if you can't tame them because you can't make the vegetable cakes, anytime you see one of them, try to capture it, kill it, whatever, and get all that mutton from them because it's fantastic. You can also cook up the mutton in the lamb chops and use that instead of meat. As you can see on my hotbar down below, I got lamb chops, and they're really good for fulfilling your hunger. I just ate 2 of them. I was down probably in the 30s or 20s, and it's just going right up real quick. So, yeah, these guys are huge. You want these guys at your base. You want to have a little farm of them. If you look down there, I've got 5 of them in that little stable, 1 male and 4 females. Every now and then I have them do the deed, and they pop out some babies. I let the babies grow up. I cryopod them, and then I use them to slaughter later on. Now, you do want to, before you slaughter them, you want to raise their health up as high as it can go, because you'll get a better yield out of them. The lower the health, the less meat and so forth you'll get out of them. So you're going to want to raise that stat up as much as possible. And if you have access to cryopods, you just leave them in cryopods. They will level so fast, and you will never have to worry about doing meat runs again once you get a good farm of these guys going. Alright, well, let's wrap this up now. Alright, so there are a couple honorable mentions that didn't make this list. One of them, the main one, is the Therizinosaur. That's a theropod, but it's also an herbivore. You'll recognize it because it has like Wolverine-like claws on its hands. It's great for getting fiber. Probably the best creature in the game to gather fiber up. It gets tons and tons of it. People commonly call it the tickle chicken, as well as other funny little nicknames. Another hard tame, similar to the Dimetrodon in the fact that it wakes up quick. So that's another one you're going to want to have narcotics with you when you knock it out. But like I said, it's an herbivore. It looks very much like a carnivore, but it's not. That's an honorable mention. And you got stuff like the raptor, which is a great early carnivore. You can tame that with a bow and narcotic arrows and a bola. You know, you just bola him and knock him out real quick, feed him some meat, and now you've got an early carnivore in the game. If you can tame 2 or 3 of them, you can build the pack up, and it can be quite devastating, you know. But yeah, that's it. So those are some of my favorite dinosaurs that I like to tame up and that I always look for when I start a new playthrough on Ark. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite dinosaurs are. What did I miss that you think is vital? None of these dinosaurs are map specific. Like, you don't have to go to any crazy maps to get them. At least I don't think so, right? Let's look through these again. Yeah, they're all solid, normal dinosaurs that you'll find on the island and pretty much every map afterward for the most part. Alright, well, if you enjoyed this video at all, please leave a like on it down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, peace.